Hi everyone, this is April Engel. I hope you all are doing well today, and welcome to the Business for Water Stewardship Project Bank webinar. Again, I'm April Engel, and I'm the Science and Policy Associate at River Network, and we're excited to tell you about this new opportunity to share your restoration projects on this national platform. Before we begin, just a few logistical reminders. We're recording today's webinar, and we'll email you a link later today. All participants will be muted throughout the webinar. You should see an orange button with a right pointing arrow in the top right of your screen. Pressing that button gives you access to this control panel where you can access handouts that you can download and a chat box that you can use to ask questions. We'll paste a link to an evaluation in the chat box before we end, and we'll also email you a link to the evaluation. Please fill that evaluation out. Your feedback makes a really big difference for us. The Business for Water Stewardship Project Bank is a new online clearinghouse that the Bonneville Environmental Foundation and River Network teamed up to offer to support growing corporate interest in projects that restore river flows and recharge groundwater, and to expand the funding opportunities for River Network premium members and their river restoration projects. During today's webinar, we're going to cover the Business for Water Stewardship Project Bank's purpose, the opportunity the Project Bank provides to river groups. We'll go over the types of projects and the types of organizations that are eligible to contribute projects to the bank. We'll show you how to submit a project. We'll go over what to expect after you submit a project, and we'll end with a question and answer period. Throughout the webinar, you can use the chat box in the control panel to ask your questions. We'll leave ample time to answer your questions at the end. Briefly, I want to tell you a little bit about River Network. So for over 29 years, we've worked to support the 2,000 plus river and watershed organizations that are working at the local and state levels around the country, while also striving to engage a much broader community to support healthy rivers and water resources. Through our website, our annual River Rally Conference, publications, convenings, network of peers and experts, resources, and direct consultation with our team, we support the individuals, groups, and coalitions who are working to protect and restore their waters across the U.S. Our team includes people who understand the challenges of working on the ground to take care of local waterways, the importance of science to making sound decisions, and how to use policy and advocacy to create lasting change. I'll now turn it over to Sarah Hoverston to tell you a little about the Bonneville Environmental Foundation and provide an overview of the Business for Water Stewardship Project Bank and the opportunity for river and conservation organizations.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, April. As April mentioned, I am Sarah Hoverson. I am the Director of Corporate Partnerships for Bonneville Environmental Foundation. And BEF is an environmental nonprofit based in Portland, Oregon. It's working at the intersection of renewable energy and freshwater. BEF represents a number of brands, programs, and initiatives designed to support corporations in their advancement of environmental water stewardship platforms and efforts. And for our water work more specifically, we have three primary brands. We have Change the Course, which is a national initiative that brings together corporations, the public, and conservation organizations to support freshwater conservation and restoration. Our Water Restoration Certificates program is a third-party verified volumetric benefit and tool that corporations can use to balance their water footprint. And then the main nature of the webinar today is our Business for Water Stewardship platform, which really represents all of our corporate water stewardship efforts in full. And BWS works hand in hand with businesses to advance solutions necessary to sustain the well-being of our communities, economies, and rivers. We provide a portfolio of different services that help businesses catalyze their engagement and leadership around environmental water stewardship. And you can learn more about BWS at businessforwater.org and some of the handouts that April has provided in the handout area of the webinar. So we really established BWS in response to the evolving corporate water awareness and strategies. Really, in response to global freshwater issues and concerns, we are witnessing more and more corporations today who are becoming more aware of business vulnerability, assessing their water footprint, implementing conservation, efficiency, and reuse initiatives, engaging in policy, and also engaging in what we call environmental water stewardship. Here are a few examples of large corporate food and beverage brands, consumer brands, and even sports brands that have not only established environmental water stewardship goals, but are also sharing them publicly and working towards those goals. So to participate in corporate water stewardship, many of these organizations are looking for guidance on various projects that they can invest in, how they can invest in the projects, the co-benefits that come from those projects, and how that these roll up into helping them meet their environmental stewardship goals that they may have. And that leads us to the BWS Project Bank, where we're really thrilled about this project and the opportunity for you guys to consider submitting some of your projects. Is that this will be a tool that will help us identify new investment opportunities in specific regions, really provide a single place or area that we can aggregate all of these amazing projects that are happening across the country. And when appropriate and when aligned with some of our corporate partners' needs, give us the ability to represent specific projects to those corporations who are looking to support environmental water stewardship investments. Now, you'll hear more from April and Felicia in this webinar about the different kind of project types that we're looking for, project criteria, and submitting to the project bank itself. And we welcome and we'll consider the submission of all different types of projects. We have found over the few years of working with organizations that there are a few common trends or themes that make some projects a little bit more attractive to corporations and their investment. The regional location of the project and hopefully being located near important stakeholder groups for the organizations is really important. That the projects will be designed, implemented, and generating results within the near term. They have something that they can, that's a little more tangible they can speak to. That the projects have other funding that they are leveraging and potentially reasonable funding gaps that the corporate partners could potentially help to close. And then really most importantly that the project co-benefits are aligned with their broader CSR environmental stewardship strategies and goals that they have set by the organization. And these could be aligned with the sustainable development goals, maybe there's volumetric metrics or measurements that they're trying to meet. And one thing that we're seeing more and more often is that regions are really interested in kind of tying their environmental work with some of their social work. And so projects that have are urban in nature and location and have really big community impact ties to them are going to be very attractive to this group. So you're going to hear more about the different projects now. We thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass it back over to April.
Sorry, y'all, I had myself muted. I'm going to now briefly review the eligibility requirements for the project bank. First, the organization type. Access to the project bank is a member-only benefit for River Network premium organizational members. If your organization currently pays dues to River Network, you're already a premium member and are eligible to include your projects in the project bank. However, if you're not already a premium member, you'll need to join at the premium level before you're eligible to include projects in the project bank. Premium members not only gain access to the project bank, you get many other great benefits too, including 25% off River Rally registration, free member-only webinars like our current Fundraising Essentials for Success series, one-on-one leadership and organizational development assistance from our leadership development team, free Rain Barrel workshop materials and support. You can post your events on our community events page and your job openings on our careers page. And you'll also have access to significant discounts on products and services provided by our service and retail partners. You can follow the link in the chat box. I'll paste that there now. You can follow the link in the chat box to learn more about premium membership and to sign up or renew. Next, project type. So foremost, projects should result in restoration, replenishment, or recharge of surface water or groundwater, as well as fit into one of the following project types: flow restoration transactions, improving agricultural water use efficiency, increasing public awareness in water efficiency, restoring natural hydrology, removing barriers or impoundments, or reducing or filtering pollution. You can learn more about the eligible project types and see examples by downloading the project type descriptions PDF in the handout box in the control panel. Eligible projects should also have one or more of the following environmental or social benefits: increasing food and water security, groundwater replenishment, recreation and economic enhancements, sustainable agriculture, water efficiency improvement, water quality improvement, wildlife and habitat improvement, environmental flows, or community engagement and education. And you can learn more about project benefits by downloading the project benefits descriptions PDF in the handouts box in the control panel. All stages of project development are eligible for inclusion in the project bank: planning, design, and implementation. All ranges of project size and cost are eligible for inclusion in the project bank. However, as Sarah mentioned, to be competitive, we encourage projects that already have secured some funding or support from other sources. And finally, you should be able to indicate the time period for the environmental and/or social benefits associated with the project. I'm now going to turn it over to Felicia Phillips to give you a virtual tour of how to upload a project into the project bank. And while we're switching presenters, just a reminder to please enter your questions in the chat questions box, and we'll be sure to answer those questions at our question and answer period.
Thanks so much, April. Hello, everyone. I'm Felicia Phillips, CFO and VP of Operations at BEF, and I'm going to take a few minutes today just to walk you through 3 different areas of the Project Bank portal that you would have access to once you register. The first thing I'm going to take you through, though, is how to actually register for an account, and then I'm going to take you to the Project Bank dashboard, let you take a little look there and see what that looks like and what that feels like. And then I'm going to very briefly walk you through how to add a new project. Now, one thing I want to tell you right off the bat here is I'm going to be flying through this material. 10 minutes is just simply not long enough to go through everything in detail. So just don't get frustrated when you're trying to take notes or jot things down. We're going to do a couple of different things for you. First of all, we'll have a subsequent webinar that will be much more detailed, and we'll go through a lot of the details about how to actually run through and submit projects. But also, once we get to the Project Bank dashboard, I'm going to show you an area in there that has a lot of resources for you and that really walks through all of this in a lot of fine detail. So bear with me. We're going to go really fast here and don't get too frustrated. Now that I've said that, one of the things that you may want to take a minute to jot down is the URL on this particular website that you can see. This is businessforwater.org/register. As April mentioned, the access to the Project Bank is an exclusive benefit to River Network members. So this is not a publicly facing web page. So you're not going to be able to find this if you just go to the website and kind of look around. So take a minute just to jot that down. This is where you're going to register for an account. You're going to see a lot of information on here. This is really basic information, nothing too too unusual. There is one question on here that I just want to address, though, and it's the last question on the form. And it says, to what extent does your organization engage in political advocacy and or litigation as tactics to achieve your mission? Now, I want to assure you, this question is not included in order to be exclusionary. It's not meant to exclude anybody that does engage in those activities from submitting projects to the project bank. Rather, our corporate clients oftentimes, once they are ready to invest in a project and want to take a look at different projects, they will want to know this information. They will want to know who the organization is that is implementing the project, just to ensure that there is no conflict with their goals and with their organizational mission. So once you fill out this form, you'll submit it. Give us 24 to 48 hours to take a look, and we will review it. We'll verify your membership as a premium member in the River Network, and give us a little bit longer if you submit the form on the weekend. It may take us a few days to review your information, but once we do review your information, we will activate your account, and you will receive an email from us that has your username and password, and then it also will have a link down here that will link you to the login page. Again, this is not a publicly facing page. The login page is not, so you're going to want to save this email. Make sure you maybe download it and have it handy on your computer so that you have access to this information. So once you click on this link, you will be taken to the login page. You'll enter your username and password, and if you're like me, I like to save my passwords to my computer, so go ahead and save your password so that you can easily log in next time. So what you're going to see when you log in is going to take you directly to the dashboard of the project bank. Again, I'm going to go really quickly here, so feel free to apply for an account, you premium members out there, and go ahead and get an account, and you'll have plenty of time to look at these items. But I do want to just point out a couple different things here on the dashboard. The first is this Project Contributor Resources box. This is the box that I referred to earlier that has all of the information in there that is very detailed about moving around the website, about information and materials, and step-by-step instructions, etc. So this is a really important section. These are all downloadable PDFs, so feel free to download those, save them to your computer, print them out if you need to put them in a notebook to have next to your computer while you're working on submitting your projects. A couple of pieces of information in here that are really important that I think you'll find very useful is the before you begin information and materials list, as well as the step-by-step instructions for submitting your project. These are two really detailed documents that tell you exactly what you need to have prepared before you sit down at your computer to submit a project, and then this will walk you through exactly how to do that. So the other section on the dashboard I want to point out is this section called Your Projects at a Glance. Now, this is where you're going to see a list of all of the projects that you and your organization have submitted, and then you will see the status of your project. So for demonstration purposes, we've got a project in here, and you can see that the status is pending review. Now, once you submit a project, it's probably going to take us 7 to 10 days to review that project, and we will then go ahead and let you know if we have any questions, need additional information, or whatnot. So this is where you can see all of your projects. Now, we just have a couple minutes left, so I want to just very quickly show you how you can get to actually submitting your projects and what that looks like. You can get there from a couple different directions. You can go over to the left side and hover over projects and go down and click on Add New Project, or you see this new and plus sign at the top. This is where you can add a new project and get to the exact same form. So you'll click on that, and I'm not going to walk through each and every one of these items, but I am going to tell you about a couple of things that might not be quite as intuitive. Much of this information is going to be, it will just be self-evident why we're asking for it, but there are a couple of things on here let's talk about. The first is this latitude, longitude, and this is just a really, it seems maybe it's a little specific for us to be asking that, but it is important because, and it's important for you to be as precise as possible about where your project is located, because this is actually what puts your project on the literal map that's on the website. So just make a point to be as specific as possible when you're doing that so that your project actually shows up. And then there's a whole section down here on project funding. So I want to just talk about that for a minute. You know, as Sarah mentioned, a lot of our corporate clients really like to fund projects that just have that gap in funding that they're waiting for to get them across the finish line. So this is one of the reasons that we are asking for this funding information, is so that we have a really good sense of where you are with respect to having all of the funding for your project, so that we can represent that appropriately to our corporate clients. So we're asking for total project cost, how much you've secured to date, what you have that's pending, and then of course we want to know the funding gap and how much is needed to really bring this thing home. And then you'll see this section here that says sources for both secured and pending funding. Now we recognize that this is, you know, potentially a little bit of sensitive information. But really what we're looking for here is an indication of whether you have other foundation funding or whether you have private donor funding, just so that we can represent to our clients that you know, there's no sort of controversial you know, organizations that might be conflicting with their mission that are involved in the project. That's just something that they may want to know. So you know, as much as you're comfortable, please tell us where the other funding is coming from as well. So you also have photography that will be requested. There's some very specific requirements for photography, so you'll want to make sure that you look at the detailed instructions for that. And then once you have this main section filled out, you'll come over to the right sidebar here, and this is where you're going to tell us about what project type your project is, the opportunities that are available, all the different benefits from the project, and then you're going to give us that beauty shot of your project, so that this is the photo that is actually going to be the first thing our clients see. So you're going to want to make sure that you give us your nice photography there. So and then, like I said, once you are ready for us to review your project, you'll hit submit for review. Give us 7 to 10 days to review your project and get back to you, and we'll let you know if we have additional information that we need, other questions, or if the project is accepted, it will go live onto the website, or if we find that the project is ineligible for some reason, we'll contact you and let you know that as well. So thanks so much for your time today, and I'll turn that back over to you, April.
Great. So we have several great questions that have been coming in through the course of the webinar. Ryan, I have a note that came up that asked me to show my screen, and if you could take that away for me for just a moment, that'd be great. So Felicia, we have a number of questions that people are asking about regarding geographic scope. Could you address a little bit about where geographically where projects are eligible? Or can anybody from across the country, are there places where there's particular geographic interest?
Yes, absolutely. We do represent projects all across the United States, and we even have some in Mexico, so that are really relevant to the Colorado River Delta. Now, we do have certain areas that are of very high interest, and I don't know if you can pass it back over to me. I can show folks that on the dashboard, if you're able to do that. There we go. So let's get to the dashboard here, and if you all can see that, we have this box here called Geographic Areas of Interest. So we'll update this from time to time, but right now this is what we're going to use to communicate to you all where we're seeing particular corporate interest. Right now, we've got a lot of interest in Texas, California, especially high interest in Southern Cal, Eastern Great Lakes region, and Mid-Atlantic region. So yes, this is not meant to say that if you don't have projects in these areas that we're not going to look at them, because we absolutely are. We have corporations, global corporations that have operations all across the U.S. that we're talking to, and as Sarah mentioned in her talk, you know, that one of the main elements is corporates are really looking for projects that are in their area, or perhaps it's near a headquarters or an out facility, or really where they're drawing from their labor force, so, and where their customers are. So lots of opportunity. So yes, we accept projects from all across the U.S., and then we have these areas that are of particular interest.
Great, thank you, Felicia. Sarah, I'm going to turn this next question to you. There are some questions about the types of projects that are eligible. We have one person that's wondering, are capacity building or watershed education projects eligible? And does this bank only inventory projects that are done on the ground? What about education?
Sure, that's a good question.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Again, we'd like to see submissions for all different types of projects and not just on the ground projects, although those sometimes are a little conceivably more easy for corporations to fund because of the results that they put down. A number of corporations do have interest in educational opportunities, and that one is going to be much more specific to the region in which they are operating, as Felicia was just talking about. I will note too, though, that oftentimes we are very interested in projects or a set of projects that not only have the on-the-ground impact, but also have volunteer opportunities tied to them. And the volunteer opportunity would be one where corporations would like to bring out their stakeholder groups, in particular their employees, to get their hands a little bit dirty on the project and be a part of it. So if projects are to be submitted that have either broad educational opportunities, those would absolutely be considered, and also for you guys' consideration as you look at projects that do have on-the-ground impact, noting or putting available projects that have volunteer opportunities associated with them are also going to be very attractive to potential corporate sponsors.
Great. The next question I can address. So this attendee is asking if an organization is fiscally sponsored, does the advocacy question apply to the organization or to the fiscal sponsor? And what I would say in that case is answer the question for your organization and just note that you are fiscally sponsored. And if there's additional questions related to your fiscal sponsor, we can follow up with you on that after you submit your project. The next question I'll let Felicia or Sarah decide who wants to take this one. They're wanting to know, do you have any statistics on the success rate for projects actually receiving funding? So what % of projects in the project bank get matched with a corporate funder?
Well, I can tell you that, we don't have a ton of statistical information related to that specific question. We, BEF, started the project bank about a year ago, and all of the projects that are in the project bank right now have been funded. So some of them require additional funding and are still providing funding opportunities for corporate clients, but this is the first time that we are opening up the project bank for anybody other than our BWS project partners to submit projects. So we don't really have experience to provide those sort of statistics, but we certainly hope that once you all start providing us with projects and we're representing them to our corporate clients, we will most definitely monitor that so we do have statistics in the future.
And just to add on to that really quickly, so as Felicia mentioned, all the projects that you see visible now are project partners of BEF and BWS. We fund over 40 projects across North America at this point, and that changes sometimes rapidly depending on the interest that we have in various areas, whether corporations are interested in investing in a single project or a portfolio of projects. So we are, in addition to the project bank, we are constantly scoping project opportunities in various regions based on their interest levels, and with a goal of funding projects from small investments to larger investments, depending on what is available and the timing at which it matches up with corporate interest.
The next question is related and wanting to know if there's a list of corporations who are actively using the project bank. This person is wanting to identify if they're working in an area, who their potential audience would be.
Sure. So we'll say at this point that a lot of the corporations will come to BEF and BWS first. They will give us some parameters of what they're looking for, and then we will present projects specifically back to them based on their interest and needs. Those who are just kind of perusing the project bank are probably at the earlier stages of understanding how they want to move forward in their environmental water stewardship platform. So it's going to vary about those who are looking at the project bank in full, and then those we are representing very specific projects too. But we do have on our on businessforwater.org, we have a page that shows the various partners that we have. And actually I'm going to look to Felicia on what exact page that is.
And while Felicia is looking for that, I wanted to just note that we are at the end of our time. Sarah and Felicia, if you have a few more minutes to answer a few more questions, we have several more. And also, if we don't get to your question, we will directly follow up with you as well. I can see who has submitted questions, so I can follow up with you directly if we don't have time to answer your questions on the webinar today.
I'm happy to stay longer. I will say real quick, April, that businessforwater.org/supporters. And in this list, you will see logo representation for all of our Business for Water supporters across various different platforms. Most specifically, the Change the Course engagement sponsors and different sponsors are the ones who have invested in environmental water stewardship in a variety of our projects, as well as leverage our work to engage their stakeholders in telling that story. The other partners that you see on there who are summit sponsors or advocacy sponsors are a good cross-section of organizations and the types of organizations that are looking at their environmental water stewardship strategies and developing plans and processes, and hopefully will be investing in projects if they aren't already.
And Ryan put the link in the chat box too if y'all want to copy or click that link as well.
If you want to toss the screen back over to me, I've got that up, and I'll just follow up with another comment that you know, there are very few large corporations nowadays that aren't looking at water stewardship efforts. It has really become to the forefront of what is on the minds of large corporations, particularly those in food and beverage that use a lot of water in their production and in their products. And so, you know, as Sarah said, you can look here and see the corporations and the sports teams that we're working with currently, but we are in talks with many, many more. And we are just, constantly out there where corporate leaders, sustainability leaders are going to conferences, and we're just constantly talking with folks. So, so this is a good representation on the website of the corporations and companies that we work with, but we're talking to many, many more. And we do occasionally have large corporations, as you might imagine, that require us to sign NDAs or don't want it advertised that we're necessarily working with them, so they're not represented here either. But this is a good representation for you all, but just to know that, just about every corporation out there that uses water in their production and products is looking for this type of information and opportunity.
The next question has to do with, are these impact investing opportunities, i.e., is there an expectation of a return on the company's investment?
The only return that is being looked for currently is the environmental impact return. So I say no to that now, with the caveat that that may change, and there may be future funding opportunities moving forward. Currently, most of our operations with this work in the way that we have a corporate partner or a handful of corporate partners that are interested in investing in X kind of project. We enter into a grant agreement with that project partner that indicates the amount of funding and the expected results of that funding agreement, which are currently very environmental impact based results. So not to date, although as we continue to evolve as an organization and the industry continues to evolve and impact investing becomes a little bit better understood and the mechanisms change, that is something we are currently looking into, and I know many of our corporate partners will be interested in that as the industry continues to evolve.
And related to that, we have a question that asks, can we apply to a corporate foundation directly while at the same time putting our project in the project bank for the same project? So if I have a project that I'm trying to get funded and I've asked, X corporation in my community to help fund it, is it okay if I also put it in the project bank even if X corporation may be one of the corporate clients that you're working with?
Sure, absolutely. Yes is the answer to that question. We also know that being on the NGO side, that you guys constantly have kind of feelers out for various funding and should continue to do that. Submission to the project bank is not in any way a guarantee of funding. It is just an opportunity to potentially have the projects represented to corporate partners. Definitely please do submit to other grant opportunities. In that case, should that happen and a grant is received, the corporate partner may have some considerations or some requirements that they must follow when it comes to then investing on the BWS, BEF, and change the course side of their work and their contributions.
And related to that, we have some questions around what happens when there is a match between a corporation and a project. Does the corporation directly fund the organization and the project? Is there an intermediary in there? Sort of how does that work once a match is made?
Yeah, that's a little bit dependent on the corporate interest and what they're hoping to do, and whether they're investing in a single project with a single project partner or a portfolio of projects. In most cases, BEF is that intermediary, and we act on behalf of the corporation and act as the actual grant funder to then the nonprofit organization. Sometimes it is the request of the corporation that they have the one organization like BEF that they're working with and working through, and that we manage the relationship with the NGO, ensure that they have everything that they need, and we're then reporting back appropriately. In other situations, they may want a little bit more of a direct engagement, ability to talk with them, from the branding perspective, both sides, the NGO and the corporation, be able to share their involvement with each other and support. So we are flexible in how that works to the most desire of the corporation and the NGO, but in the majority of cases, BEF will be that intermediary and will be the organization that is making the granting or the funding to the on-the-ground conservation organization.
Great. And we have several questions related to what are the typical funding amounts, where are projects being funded, and is it correct that if folks go to the Business for Water Stewardship, the businessforwater.org website, on that front page there is a map, and on that map includes projects that have been successfully funded. Is that correct, Sarah and Felicia?
That is correct. So the projects that you are seeing on the map currently, as Felicia mentioned a little bit earlier, are projects that BWS and BF has engaged in relationships, funding relationships with to date. Many of those projects that could have been a single time funding, or there's continuous funding opportunities available. Some projects have been fully funded and are complete. There's kind of a variety of projects that are on there now, but all those ones have been funded. The investment opportunities also can really vary, and some corporations are still just dipping their toe in on their environmental water stewardship platform, don't have a lot of funds available, and will make small contributions in the $5,000 range, and then upwards of a couple $100,000 range in projects. This is one of the reasons that we find that some of the larger projects, especially the multi-million-dollar projects, have other funding on hand that they're looking to leverage, as the investment levels that we have been seeing are in the $100,000 and below range from corporations, and they're really looking to kind of close some funding gaps, or just be able to contribute in any way that they can. As far as the regions that you'll see, as Felicia mentioned, the priority regions now is where we're starting to hear a lot more corporate interest, where they'd like to make some investments in regions that are more meaningful to them. To date, you'll note that in most of the projects that we have funded are in Pacific Northwest, in California, in the Colorado River Basin states, and then in Georgia, where we have recently undergone a kind of subset of our Change of Course work, our Change of Course Georgia, which is really trying to drive investment and awareness across the state of Georgia based on the corporate interest in that area.
Great. Just a few more questions. Do project sponsors have the option to decline donations where there are conflicts of interest?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we will typically, sorry, this is Felicia, we will typically work with both the corporate partner as well as the conservation organization when we're looking for a match. So it's not likely that you're ever going to be put into a situation where you actually have to decline funding, but rather we would just know from working with you that that this is a bit of funding you're not interested in acquiring, and then we would act accordingly when we talk to our corporate clients. So but certainly we won't ever force anybody to take money.
Great, and just one final question that I'll ask all of you, and also just a reminder to the rest of you that are on the line. There's some other questions that we didn't get a chance to get to, but rest assured that in the next day or two, I will get back to you with an answer to your question to make sure that you get your specific question answered. So the final question is, just what is the typical, like, is there a typical funding range, or does it just depend on the corporate funder? Lots of questions around, you know, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about $1,000? Are we talking about $100,000?
Yeah,
yes.
as Sarah mentioned, it really ranges. We don't very often have amounts that are as low as the $1,000, you know, $2,500 range. I mean, that's pretty unusual. We're, you know, typically in the $25,000, $50,000 range. Our longtime large corporate funders are, you know, they're you know, funding usually a portfolio of projects where, you know, the funding could go to any number of projects, so, you know, in the amounts of, you know, anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000. So it really is wide-ranging. We don't have a lot of clients that we work with that are going to have smaller amounts contributed. You know, we generally will guide them to our WRC products, which is really a turnkey product for folks that are wanting to invest those smaller amounts of funding.
Yeah, and I will note too that the portfolio works on the other side then, where we may have a corporation that's interested in investing in a portfolio of projects. We would also potentially represent projects to a number of potential corporate partners, where then that money is pooled and comes as a singular grant from BEF to the project partner, kind of on behalf of those various organizations. But still, to Felicia's point, we're still looking in that same funding range of, you know, $25,000 to $250,000.
Great. So I'm gonna end the question and answer period there. There were several questions that we didn't get the chance to get to. Thank you all for all of the great questions that you provided. We really appreciate that. Ryan, if you could switch it back over, give me back to my screen. I just have one final screen to share. All right. Okay, so with that, we're going to conclude the webinar today, and we really hope that many of you will be contributing projects to the project bank in the coming weeks and months. And again, if you have questions or need support with your project bank submission, you can contact me. Again, this is April Engel. I work at River Network, and you can reach me at aengel@rivernetwork.org. And a few final reminders. A recording of the webinar will be available on our website, and a link will be emailed to you later today. Please take our follow-up survey and provide us with feedback. It really makes a big difference for us. And so please look for that in the follow-up email. And finally, thank you all so much for the great work that you're doing to protect and restore our waterways all across the country. We really appreciate it, and thank you for your time and interest today. With that, we'll wrap up and end today's webinar. I hope you all have a great afternoon, and goodbye.